The iconic Hollywood actor was best known for his work in Top Gun, Batman Forever, The Doors. Val Kilmer has died.
Hollywood erupted in grief and reflection upon the passing of Val Kilmer, an actor who given his all to every part he played, from Doc Holliday to Jim Morrison. Kilmer absorbed himself fully into his roles. He was more than an actor. Still, there was one part that seemed distinct, remote, and impenetrable. Kilmer revealed the unanticipated truth about Batman Forever just before he passed away. The weight of something heavier, a secret entrusted to him to keep hidden, a burden he bore silently, was more pressing than the criticism or the strain. "They forced me to conceal this," he said to a buddy a while back. It dealt with the hidden price of being the caped crusader and how a dream turned into a jail. What began with the Batsuit was Gotham was changing and everyone had forgotten about the Batman from the mid-1990s. Once Batman Returns, Michael Keaton infamously hung up his cape, leaving a series that was rapidly altering course once Tim Burton stepped back as director. Warner Brothers was in need of a fresh concept, one that was prettier, more commercially viable, and suitable for children. With Joel Schumacher's arrival came a new Dark Knight, an exaggerated cast of antagonists, and a more vibrant color scheme. Val Kilmer wasn't everyone's first pick. In fact, he was barely mentioned. Warner Brothers, on the other hand, were in need of an actor with real acting chops, someone who could capture the nuanced emotions of Bruce Wayne while simultaneously captivating a younger demographic. With his recent successes in Tombstone and The Doors, Kilmer has the ideal blend of toughness and magnetism. However, assuming the role of Batman was no typical obstacle. Following in the footsteps of Keaton, whose enigmatic and reserved performance had mesmerized viewers, Kilmer joined the cast. The pressure was on to leave a lasting legacy, not only in terms of box office success, and Warner Brothers made that very obvious. They need a Batman capable of generating sales in cinemas and toy stores, as well as in branding, merchandising, and fast food partnerships. Kilmer had transformed from an actor into the hub of a multi-billion-dollar advertising empire. Kilmer was really dedicated behind the scenes. His respect for Schumacher, with whom he had collaborated on The Saint, 1997, was a major factor in his accepting the part without having seen the screenplay. Kilmer had faith in Schumacher's concept and thought he could give the part his own spin. With the earnestness of a Shakespearean lead, he researched the character even without the script in hand. He had hoped to delve into Bruce Wayne's ambivalence as an orphan, millionaire, and icon, but he soon realized that the audience was more interested in spectacle than analysis. Batman the individual wasn't what the studio wanted. They wanted Batman the icon. Batman Forever still managed to pull in a ton of money. It rekindled interest in the franchise and earned over $300 million globally. Kilmer had fulfilled his role for Warner Brothers by donning the outfit, delivering the lines, and contributing to the creation of a smash hit. However, achievements alone do not necessarily reveal all. Every day on set became a fight not against villains or stunts, but against quiet discomfort and a feeling of erasure. What the cameras didn't see, what the interviewers ignored, was how the character started to stifle Kilmer. Why? Because the suit, which defined the job, was the root of all the problems. For Val Kilmer, who had always looked up to superheroes, donning the Batsuit was first and foremost a sign of victory. The opportunity to enter the myth and experience a fantasy that few ever get to live seemed like a full-circle moment. Like a child receiving a prize, he felt a sense of wonder, pride, and power when first seeing the legendary outfit shimmering under the studio lights. That sensation, however, was fleeting. Something changed the second he slipped it on. Built for dramatic effect and cinematic flair, the costume was a sight to behold, but a misery to wear. Constructed from thick, harsh rubber and weighing more than 50 pounds, it turned Kilmer from performer into prisoner in an instant. His head was stifled by the cowl, his breath was choked by the chest plate, and walking was a chore in those hard boots. He was hot, sweaty, and exhausted by lunchtime since the outfit didn't have any ventilation. Moreover, he had severe hearing and speech impairments. He then reflected on how solitary it had been when people stopped talking to him. It was like acting from inside a coffin, as he would later describe it. Kilmer, who is famous for completely engrossing himself in his roles, ended himself emotionally detached from the feelings he was supposed to portray. Because his speech was muted and his muscles were stiff, he was unable to show emotion through his face or body. He felt increasingly ensnared by the outfit that was meant to characterize him as he endeavored to become Bruce Wayne. On set, nobody appeared to notice. Everyone from the crew to the producers to Warner Brothers was ecstatic about the costume's merchandising possibilities after seeing how well it appeared on video. Images of Val Kilmer in the iconic Batman outfit went viral, appearing on billboards, cereal boxes, action figures, and lunchboxes throughout the world. However, the guy within remained unseen. He would never forget the one incident that hurt more than the others. One afternoon, business titan and billionaire investor Warren Buffett brought his grandchildren to the set. Even in Hollywood, Buffett was a huge thing, so naturally everyone was quite enthusiastic. With his Batman costume on, Kilmer stood tall and ready to greet them. They sprinted over to him, their expressions betraying their elation, but he couldn't help but feel distant from them. "They weren't talking to me," Kilmer reflected afterwards. "It was the suit they were chatting with." The kids gawked at the bat symbol, the utility belt, and the armor as they around him in awe, but they never met his gaze. No one greeted them or even bothered to ask any questions. Instead of Val, they spoke to Batman. At that instant, it hit him. He wasn't only portraying Batman, he was really wearing the character. And no matter how much heart he poured into the part, it would never translate to the screen. There would be complete concealment. Rather than focusing on subtlety, emotion, or complexity, his performances would revolve around stance, silhouette, and camera angles. "Until I understood that my part in the film was merely to appear and stand where instructed," he remarked, "it was exasperating. Until I realized I was merely an actor in a suit, nothing more. It was taxing on the body, but the mental and emotional toll was far heavier. His ears would ring from hours of muffled talk, his skin would be scraped raw, and his shoulders would be aching after long days of shooting. He was unable to connect with his co-stars in the way he desired and struggled with proper breathing. Restriction, not freedom, was the character's role. He did not say a word. With contracts in hand, marketing planned, and work to be done, Warner Brothers made it plain. Batman had to project an image of invincibility and perfection. Kilmer conceded, "They made me hide this," as he neared the end of his life. "They warned me not to reveal my true feelings or break the illusion by discussing it." There was a price to pay for the illusion, but it was worth it since it was shiny and marketable. Plus, Kilmer was the only one who had to deal with it. He grinned throughout interviews, signed toys, and saw Batman Forever's success. His resolve was eroding, though. More than just bruising his body, the suit's weight had broken his spirit. "A piece of me that thought becoming Batman would be like soaring through the air now feels more like tumbling." Not because he was conceited or spiteful, but because he just couldn't face the outfit again. He turned down the opportunity for a sequel, Batman and Robin. He would never be able to embody the heroic figure he had fantasized of being, that quiet shadow. He did say, "Batman quit me once." He put it out of his mind for a long time. Afterwards, he tried his hand at various endeavors, some of which were fruitful, while others were not. He rediscovers his passion for theater and storytelling from his own unique perspective. The Batsuit's silhouette persisted, nevertheless. It followed him everywhere he went, from interviews to fan letters to chance meetings at airports where complete strangers continued to refer to him as Batman. Even though he always smiled graciously, he kept the hidden burden of the role's effects on him. As his health deteriorated and he reflected on his path, it was only in his latter years that he started to speak out, not to criticize but to be truthful and break free of delusion. "They forced me to conceal this," he reiterated once again. "Before the internet, it was illegal to offend a character in any way, shape, or form, even when they weren't on screen, much less when they made $1 billion in merchandise. His throat cancer had made his voice raspier, yet his remarks were sharper than before. Oh, how I adored Batman. Even now I do. What I learned from that outfit, though, is that even when your aspirations come true, they may still shatter you. That revelation didn't dilute, but rather enriched Val Kilmer's reputation. He had no clue that being Batman would nearly cost him his life, because the hero was really a guy who endured hardships that the public never witnessed. Not only did the lawsuit test his devotion to the part, but he also faced the formidable challenge of defeating the legendary actor. Given the enduring impact of Michael Keaton's performance, Val Kilmer faced a distinct crossroads in his career. Though he had little interest in taking up the cowl and cape, Kilmer eventually did so in order to satisfy a fan base that was very loyal to the previous Batman and live up to Keaton's reputation. With such a large number of fans anticipating the next film, Kilmer later said that he felt tremendous pressure to live up to Keaton's legacy. There was both internal and external pressure. While Keaton's Batman was lauded for its reflective, tormented depiction, Kilmer has always pursued parts that offered subtlety and depth. The tone that Schumacher had in mind for Batman Forever was one of adventure and lightheartedness, and Kilmer had to strike a balance between the two in his portrayal. The high expectations for his success made him realize this was going to be a challenging assignment. His co-stars, especially Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, and Nicole Kidman, both scared and inspired him. Kilmer felt limited by the suit's restrictions while his co-stars flourished, while Carrey and Jones added ludicrous energy to their parts as Two-Face and the Riddler, respectively. In spite of this, Kilmer managed to give the part nuance and complexity. He thought the vivid spectacle shouldn't take away from the psychological intricacy of Batman. The themes of family atonement and personal growth were explored by his Bruce Wayne, who was more vulnerable than Keaton's version. He managed to play the part with restraint, which earned him some acclaim, and earned him criticism for failing to deliver on darker expectations. Balancing audience requests with the developing franchise direction, Kilmer's performance was an effort in Batman Forever, despite the departure from darker tones of its predecessors. The unforeseen twists and turns that Val Kilmer's life underwent over the years further distanced him from the Batman persona that had hitherto characterized his profession. Slowly, Kilmer retreated from the spotlight after the turbulent experience on Batman Forever, not in a rebellious attempt for solitude but in a peaceful pursuit of serenity. As time passed, more Batsuit performers emerged, each adding their unique style to the role of Gotham's Dark Knight. However, Kilmer's performance stuck with audiences who remembered him as part of a golden age of Batman films. Even though his work was much liked by fans, Kilmer decided he couldn't continue to live up to that reputation. He left the Hollywood grind for reasons beyond just wanting to be free. He needed to find himself again. His dedication to acting was unwavering. He kept performing, but with greater restraint. When he realized he needed an outlet other than a superhero outfit, he went back to his theatrical origins. In his art, he was able to give life to characters that were really his. Unspoken and deeply buried in his account was the truth about his time in the Batsuit, which he continued to ignore. Later in life, while he was still fighting throat cancer, Kilmer started to talk openly about the event that had changed and affected him. He was now able to speak the truth because the years had given him the room to think, and that had given him the clarity he needed. His priorities changed from safeguarding Warner Brothers or Batman's reputation to repairing himself and coming to terms with the emotional toll the job had taken. It became more difficult for him to conceal his genuine emotions in interviews and memoirs as his health declined and his voice became weaker. The emotional and physical toll he had endured became more apparent when he started to speak up. He said, "I wore a costume and played Batman, but I was never Bruce Wayne. His true identity was never revealed to me. The outfit and the brand were the only things everyone cared about. Ultimately, I became engrossed in it." At its core, his disappointment sprang from the fact that the part that should have solidified his position among Hollywood's all-time greats had instead reduced him to a lifeless symbol, a mannequin for an icon whose humanity was gradually eroded with each still image. Fans started to view Kilmer differently as his health deteriorated. They no longer saw him only as the man who wore the cowl and cape, but as someone who sacrificed for that reputation. They had been duped into thinking he was an unbreakable superhero, but in reality, he was a frail guy fighting an illness and trying to make sense of his decisions and his history. Many people could relate to Kilmer's story because of how honestly he told it. Conversations on the dark side of celebrity, the demands on performers, and the cost of legendary roles were prompted by his choice to disclose the emotional and physical toll of playing Batman. For fans who saw Kilmer as Batman growing up, the actor started to take on a new role, one that required more of him than he could provide, and they began to view him less as a hero who held firm against Gotham's adversaries and more as a sacrificed individual. Despite the hardships he endured, Kilmer found salvation on his trip. Being converted into a symbol, the price of fame and iconography were lessons he learnt. His self-discovery, nevertheless, was unparalleled by anybody else. Beyond his superhero days, he evolved into a man who, in the face of adversity, mustered the courage to tell the truth, no matter how hurtful it may have been. Despite the hardships he endured as a result of his health problems and the lessons he learned during his time as Batman, one thing was clear as Val Kilmer entered the last chapters of his life. His legacy would be defined by the truths he kept hidden, the candor he shared, and the bravery he displayed in confronting both external pressures and his own personal demons. Like Batman's, Kilmer's legacy would last. Ultimately, though, what mattered most was not the bat emblem on his breast, but rather the courage and openness with which the guy who wore it shared his experience. In light of Kilmer's story, what can we learn about the selflessness of the people whose roles we admire? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment. Please come back for more content.